بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So we left off in the last class, we're still in that same chapter, about not fulfilling the rights of other people. And we said from narrations, it's very evident that if a person dies before he fulfills the rights of others, then he won't get salvation until all those rights are restored to their owner, or the owner forgives him for those things, or till his good deeds are given to the one who had the right upon him to compensate for those things. Or if there are no good deeds, no from that person, then the sins of the other will be transferred to his scroll of deed in order to pay for those things that he owed. And lastly would be if Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam interceded for him. So it says, the author says, exactly how many of the good deeds required will be required to compensate for an unpaid debt is a matter only known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He said, we don't have any knowledge of that, and it's not necessary for us to know this type of knowledge. But some narrations do mention equivalence. For example, one narration from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, for each dirham, 600 prayers of the debtor will be paid to the creditor. That's a lot of salat. You think about how much time it takes to make the 600 salat, and we give that to someone for every dirham that we owe them. Or we could think of, in our currency or something, even if we think of it as a dollar. Every dollar that we owe someone, $10, and we need to, give them 600 for each one, 6,000 prayers. That's a lot of salat. He said, if it's 1/6 of 6 dirham is of silver, then 700 prayers of the debtor will be transferred to the rightful owner. So the one who dies and leaves a debt behind, he'll be difficult time and barzakh. So everyone should be, very careful about the debts that they owe, and to make sure that they repay those debts, or that person will forgive them. And if a person can't pay his debts, he must, make sure it comes out of his inheritance, or ask Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to intercede for them, and to intercede with the creditor. So there's a bunch of stories about these things that are very interesting. I believe some of them are in this chapter. So we have hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that said, nothing is more serious after the greater sins than the fact that a person dies while he is in debt to people, and there is nothing to sell to repay his debt. Also, Prophet told his companions one day after Salat, he said, such and such a person who was martyred, they were shaheed. They're still waiting outside of Jannah. He cannot enter Jannah because he still owes 3 dirham to a Jewish person. Subhanallah. It's not even to a Muslim. He owes 3 dirham to a Jew, and he was a shaheed, and this debt is so serious and so important that he cannot enter Jannah till this debt was paid. So him telling his companions about this, inshallah, it will probably encourage them to pay that person's debt. We also see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't lead the funeral prayer for people until their debt was paid. So it's a very serious thing. So we have many narrations that establish this as being a greater sin if one willfully or purposefully neglects to pay their debt. So Alama Nuri has in his book Dar es-Salam, he quotes another book, Nurul Uyun. He writes this interesting story. He said that Sayyid Hashmi was a very pious scholar, that he had taken 100 dinars as a loan from a Jewish man. And he promised he'd give it back in 20 days. He said, I returned half the amount to him, and I didn't see him for some time. So he gave him, he had taken 100 dinar, he gave 50 dinars back. He still owes 50. People told, he went to look for that guy. He said, people told me that he had went to Baghdad. So one night I dreamt that I was in the day of resurrection. I was summoned with the other people to take account for my deeds, and Allah, in His mercy, showed me Jannah. So I decided to cross the Sirat as soon as possible to go to Jannah. However, he said the scream from the hellfire made me scared. While I was crossing the bridge, all of a sudden, the Jewish person I borrowed money from jumped up from below from the hellfire, covered in flames, and he blocked my way. Imagine it's not a dream, it's like a nightmare. You were crossing Surah to Jannah, and a Jewish person jumps out at you that you owed him money. He's covered in flames. He said, give me that 50 dinar that you owe me, and I'll let you go. He wants his toll. So he said, I've always been looking out for you to repay you that amount, but I wasn't able to find you. He said, yeah, you're right, but you need to repay me, or I won't let you cross this Sarat. I said, I don't have anything. I can't give you anything. So in return for his debt, the creditor he said he asked me to allow him to put a finger on my body. So I gave him permission. He put his finger on my chest. Just as his finger touched my chest, I screamed due to the burning and the pain, and I woke up from this nightmare. The place where the Jew had touched my chest was also burnt. After this, he opened his chest to the audience. The people that came, they heard him screaming, and they saw that he had a really bad wound on his chest. And he said that he was still having it treated, but it didn't seem to be cured. And when the audience heard this, they started wailing and crying. So, very interesting story. This was his repayment in this dunya that he gave back for that 50 dinar that he owed that Jewish person. So it's very interesting, and it shows the importance of the debts. Sometimes we take them lightly, or people borrow and they have no intention on paying back in the very beginning. I'm pretty sure all of us have seen someone like this or met someone like this. They take money and they have no intention. Then when you call them, they don't answer. You can't find them. They don't respond. Like they're hiding because of some money that they owe. We
I have a
also
quick
have,
question on that. I have a quick
yeah.
question on that. If you borrow some money from the bank and you have installment payments and you died, so you have intention of paying every month so much amount until it's paid off. You can't pay in advance either. What happens then if your children are not aware of it?
Well, you need to make sure it's documented, and that in some cases, these places forgive those debts, I think. If it's only in your name, like if you had credit card and you die, they wipe it away because there's no one, they can't get it from you. But if there's a way that you have to repay it, then it would come from your inheritance.
So you
To
should
pay
know,
those
at
things.
least inform your children or your spouse or whatever
Yeah,
that.
I have this type of loan and this thing, but most of the time, if it's in your name only, at least in America, I think they wipe away those debts.
So that'll
They,
be acceptable, that
yeah,
you're free of
because
that.
they forgave it. Yeah,
Okay,
either you have
got
to
it.
pay it or they have to forgive it, and in that case, they forgive it because they cannot come after you and take it.
Got it.
But
Got it.
these are more about when you borrow money from people, like
Individuals.
in the past.
Individuals.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
borrowed money from someone because they didn't have this system that we have now, really.
got it.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
I asked that question. Okay, got it.
Okay. Also, 17th volume of Bahar Anwar, it says that Shahid al-Awwal quoted another scholar that he said, it was my wish to see Abu Suleiman Durrani, who was considered to be a pious and God-fearing person. So I saw him in a dream a year after his death. I asked as to, how did Allah deal with you? He said, Ya Ahmed, when I was passing through Babu Saghir one day, I saw a camel that had a lot of hay and grass on the back of that camel. So I just took a twig from this, and I don't remember if I used it as a toothpick to pick my teeth or either I just threw it away like that. But a year has passed, and I'm still occupied in accounting for that twig. So, something we would take very lightly, but he took it from someone else. It was unlawful for him. So we have to be careful not to take things from other people. Maybe we see we're walking by someone's yard and you see a nice apple tree and it's in their yard, it's their property, and someone just takes the apple and eats it, but it's not their property. So these type of things. This is what happened to this man. He saw someone passing by with hay, took one twig, and now he's accounting for that twig and suffering because of that twig. So it just shows us to be mindful and to think of the debts that we owe, or when we borrow things from other people, to make sure we really take care of that. So he says a Quranic verse supports this fact. He says in Surah Luqman, "O my son, surely if it is the very weight of a grain of a mustard seed, even though it is in the heart of a rock, or high above in the heaven, or deep down in the earth, Allah will bring it to light." So the one who did good, even if it's something small, and the one who did evil, even though it was something small, they will see it in the hereafter. The letters to Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, he says, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, "O creatures of Allah, know that Allah the Gracious will question you about your every small and big deed." So everything will be held accountable for those things, even the things that we forgot about. So we have to always do istighfar, ask Allah to forgive us for those things that we don't even remember that we did, or that we did unintentionally and we didn't even know. We also have this in Surah Zilzal. Then one who has done Adam's weight of good will see it, and the one who's done Adam's weight of evil will see it. And also in Bahar Anwar, it says that Sayyid Hassan ibn Sayyid Ali Isfahani said, "At the time of my father's demise, I was studying in Najaf al-Ashraf. The responsibilities of my father fell upon some of my brothers. I was unaware of this. 7 months after the death of my father, my mother also passed away in Isfahan. Her last remains were brought to Najaf al-Ashraf. One of those nights, I saw my father in a dream. I asked him that that he had died in Isfahan. So how did you reach Najaf? He said, yes, though I died in Isfahan, I was given a place in Najaf. So I asked my mother if she was also with him. He said she is in Najaf, but in a different house. So he got the idea that her position was different than the father. So I asked him, how was he doing in the Akhirah? He said that though previously he was in severe pain, but now, due to Allah's mercy, he is good, he's comfortable. And I was surprised at how a pious and religious person like him could suffer pain in Akhirah. He said that it was due to the fact that he was in debt to someone named Hajj Reza. He said, though he had demanded the payment, I was unable to repay it. I was suffering torture for this default in debt. So he said, I woke up from my dream startled. I wrote to my brother, who was the wasi of my father. I told him about my dream so that he can make questions about it to see if my father owed some money to such person, Hajj Reza. My brother wrote me back and said that he went through all the books, but he couldn't locate a creditor by that name. So I wrote again to my brother, he says, and try to find this person, ask him directly if he had a debt, if my father had a debt with him. So my brother wrote back after some time and said that he found that person, questioned them about this debt, And he was told that my father did owe 18 tomans, but except Allah, no one knew about it. He said that after the death of the father, he approached my brother and asked him if his name appeared in the list of the creditors. When my brother told him that it wasn't in there, he was disturbed as to how my father failed to note down his name among the creditors. Since he didn't have any proof, he didn't see any way to come and ask for that money back. So upon hearing this, the brother offered him the amount of the debt, but he refused to accept it. And he said that he had already forgiven his father for this debt. And that's why we see at one point where it was unknown, he was suffering punishment. But when he found out about it, he forgave him. And then the debt went away. And then also the punishment for not paying that debt went away. So haqq nas is a very serious thing when we owe other people. We can some things we have haqq Allah that we have between us and Allah. Maybe Allah is forgiving for these. Maybe we have some missed prayer, we have some missed fast, or something like this between us and Allah. We should try to make it up here. But maybe, for example, Allah's rahmah or shafa'ah of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam, it will remove this. But in the case of haqq nas, the person needs to forgive you for this, which is different. So the debts are haqq nas. Imam Bakr alayhi salam, he said, oppression or dhulm is of three types. One that Allah will not forgive. Second is which He will forgive. And lastly, one which He will take away. So the oppression that Allah will never forgive, is shirk. We see that Allah says in Quran, surely, it's Nisa, ayat 48, surely Allah does not forgive that anything should be associated with Him, and He forgives what is beside that to whoever He pleases. And whoever associates anything with Allah, he has done a great sin. So we see here that shirk is a sin of the great magnitude. It's even the greatest sin, it is said. He has set this as an unforgivable sin. So this is for those people who are persisting knowingly in this act of shirk. And Allah is the one who establishes the law. He establishes the rules of creation. So He is the one who says which sins are greater than other sins. Someone may say, how can a thought, shirk is a thought, how can a thought be worse than an action? Like murder or theft, etc., these type of things. We can see that just as an example, that sometimes in our society that people are punished more for conspiracy to commit a crime than someone who has actually done the crime himself. Maybe just think someone robs a bank and someone gets 10, 15 years. Someone who is plotting to rob a big bank or plotting to do murder, they get life in prison or 30 years or something like that. So it also shows that some societies consider the thought of doing the thing as a punishable offense. Other aspect is that when one commits a crime against another person, that person may forgive them, or they may overlook them. Even in cases we see the family of those who were murdered. However, when we come to the sin of shirk, it is something that's continuous. It's a continuous sin against Allah, where the person is constantly rejecting the oneness of Allah. And he has to stop the crime in order to get forgiveness. Someone kills a person, that action took him a few minutes, for example, or a few seconds, or 1 second, he pulled the trigger and it's done. He's not continuously killing a person, or he's not continuously stealing from a person. He did it and it ended this sin. But when a person does shirk, it's continuous. The thought is continuous. They are rejecting Allah. Also, when we look at crimes, they vary in degree according to who the crime was against. It's natural for us to react to a man killing another man in the street, they get in a fight, or one shoots another one. It's bad. It's terrible. But how much worse would we view it if that man killed his mother or his grandmother, the one who nurtured him and raised him with affection and kindness? This would be the worst. We would say, oh, like, oh my God, how did that man, he killed his grandmother? You know, it would be so much worse in our eyes than someone who killed another person that was his peer, for example. So, what about the case of shirk? This is not even a crime committed against another human being, but it's against the nurturer and sustainer of all of mankind. So it's against the Most High. So when we look at it this way, we see the severity of shirk and why Allah will not forgive shirk. Obviously, if someone commits shirk and they do tawbah and they do istighfar, they ask Allah to forgive them and they turn away from that sin, Allah will forgive them. We are talking about someone who is continuously committing this sin of shirk, and they die in this state as a mushrik. Allah will not forgive them for this. So this is the first thing. The second thing is the oppression that Allah will forgive is one that a person does upon himself, which is a sin between that person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which I mentioned could be salat or fasting or not fulfilling Hajj or these things when they are able. Third, the oppression that Allah takes away is that the one that a person does by not repaying his debts. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that one who is able to satisfy and please his creditors will certainly enter Jannah without any delay in accounting. He will be in the garden in the company of Ismail alayhi salam, son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Also, he said the debt which is returned by the debtor is more superior to the worship of 1,000 years and the emancipation of 1,000 slaves and performing Hajj and Umrah 1,000 times. He also said, if someone restores a single dirham to its rightful owner, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will save him from the fire of the hell, and for each 1/6 of a dirham, he will get rewards of a prophet, and for each dirham, he will get a place of red pearls in paradise. He also said, returning a right to its owner is better than fasting during the day and praying at night. If a person returns a debt, an angel cries out from below the arsh, O servant of Allah, from the time you began this good deed, Allah has forgiven all of your past sins. So we see the thawab and repaying the debts, and how much reward we can get from this. So when a person has something in his possession, the author, he says it can be two situations. The first case is the person knows that whatever he has isn't fully his own. Some of it is, some of it isn't. Some belongs to someone else. The second case is that a person, he owes another person, but this person has no share in the actual goods or property in possession. For example, the thing he borrowed is already used up, but he is in debt to the one who had lent that. In the same way, there are various types of sureties and compulsory maintenance that a person is responsible. And he said we have to take care of these, make a great effort to look after these. So he said, in regarding the first case, it includes these 4 categories. To know the quantity and the owner. When it's known that a particular quantity of a thing rightfully belongs to such and such person, it's wajib to return it, the same amount to whom it belongs. And in case he is dead, then we have to give that to his successors. That's when the quantity and the person is known. The second is when the quantity is known, but not the owner. I know I owe someone $100, but I don't remember who. If the exact quantity owed is known, but there is a doubt regarding to whom it is owed, to the extent that one feels the concerned quantity rightly belongs to like 3 or 5 people, he narrowed it down to these people. It says, then on the basis of precaution, it's necessary to satisfy all of these people. If it is not possible to satisfy all of them, then there are three different rulings. One of them is the lots should be drawn between them, and one of them is given that thing. The second is that the goods should be equally distributed to all possible owners. The third is if the doubt is with the reference to 100 or more people, if the owner is completely unknown, then as a precaution, he should get permission from his marja and give this money away as charity on behalf of the real owner. The next thing is when the quantity is known, but the owner is unknown. The quantity is not known. He doesn't know how much he owes, but he knows who the owner is. Under these circumstances, that a person knows that he owes some of the goods in his possession to a particular person, but he doesn't know exact quantity that he owed. It's wajib upon him to give at least a third of the goods to the owner. As a precautionary measure, he should give him something more to satisfy the owner. The next situation, we just have a few left of these and we end this chapter, inshallah. When the owner, when both the owner and the quantity are, and we don't remember how much we owe, we just say, I know I owe someone something. The person knows that he owes some of the goods he has to someone. It's haram for him to use those goods, but he does not know the exact quantity of those goods that are prohibited for him, and he doesn't know the rightful owner of those things. He may consider a few persons as probable that owners of that thing, but he's unaware how much of it belongs to which one. He says in these circumstances, it's wajib on him to give khums, 20% on the whole of those goods. After this, the rest of those goods or property become permissible for him to use. This is talked about in Rasala or books of fiqh in Bab al-Khums or the chapter on khums, more details. The second condition is something is owed by a person, but it is not in the form of tangible property. He says there's four circumstances of this type, and we end with this. First one, if the exact quantity and the rightful owner are known, then without any doubt that quantity has to be returned to the owner. Second, the exact quantity is known, but the owner is not known. And there is a doubt between some selected people that it could belong to any of them. In this case, it's wajib to satisfy each of them in the way described, for the same as tangible goods. But if the doubt is between a large number of people, then the value of the goods must be given to the Hakam al-Shari, or the judge, Qadi, another name. By his permission on behalf rightful owner. Value is not the person to whom it is owed. It restores suppose for it. When neither is
Sheikh, we lost you.
Yeah, I'm texting him.
Are you there, Sheikh? Can you hear us?
Okay, no, I was on mute. Sorry, I don't know what happened. The call dropped.
Yeah, we
Let me,
lost you completely.
yeah, let me finish the last line. I think that's when it cut off on the fourth thing. Let's see. It says when you don't know the exact quantity nor the owner, the law states that an estimate has to be made, and the average of the minimum and maximum amount paid as charity after the permission of the Hakam al-Shari, or the Islamic judge. So these are some situations that someone could get themselves into, that for example, they know who it's easy if you know who the owner is and how much you have to pay. Obvious, this is obvious. But the second one, you, for example, you know how much is owed, but you don't remember who you owe it to, or you remember who you owe, but you don't remember how much, and they don't remember how much either. These situations, they can happen, especially if someone does a lot of trading and business and things like this. So these are some remedies and solutions for those things. So we run out of time, but we also finished this chapter, alhamdulillah, and we'll take 5-minute break and come back and start the next session, inshallah.
Habib has a question for you. Can he ask a question now, or should he come back 5 minutes later?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Go ahead.
So one of my relative, when he had fruit, some of them inside house, some of them goes outside, and is like walking. Some people says, people walking, they can take some fruit. Is that permissible or not?
No, unless he gave permission, those things, or he doesn't mind, he doesn't care. If he has intention that, these fruits are for everyone, then it's okay. But if he has an intention that, no, these are for myself and my family alone, or I use these and sell them, then it's not permissible. And if someone walking by, they shouldn't take those fruits, because they don't know what the intention of the owner is. It's different if they're like, where I live, we have a lot of trees in the neighborhood, but they belong to the city and they're for everybody. I mean, we have lime, peaches, pomegranates, and they're just hanging there. If someone wants, they can just take them because they're for the city. But if that same tree is in someone's yard, I cannot go to their yard and just take one and then leave. So
what if the branch goes? What if the branch comes? What if the branch comes to my house? We're neighbors, and the fruit falls in my yard. Can I?
Yeah, but you know the root of it is in his yard.
His yard, yeah. That's why we should ask him. You're right.
Yeah, you have to ask, or return it. A lot of times the people wouldn't care and they wouldn't mind, but it shows us the importance of intention.
Absolutely.
Seeking. It's all about consent. It shows us the amount of we should have consent from other people to use things. I remember in America or the West, we usually give like a tip to someone, say $5 or some, whatever the percentage. So one time I was in Iraq, and my friend arranged a ride for me, and they said, oh, it's 70,000 dinar, for example. So I said, I just give the guy 75. So he said, I know this 70 is the amount that we agreed on for the ride, but what is this other 5? Is this permissible for me to use? Am I supposed to give this back to you? Or what is this? What do I do? I can't take it and use it because I don't know what it is and what it's for, or something like that. And then I just told him, no, it's a gift. I just gift it to you. It's like, okay, now I can, I know. So I noticed that a lot while I was there, that a lot of people are very, they want to know, is it permissible to use or not use? And they pay attention a lot to those things.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Inshallah. 5 minutes break?
Yeah. 5 minutes. I'll be back in
45?
5 minutes,
45,
inshallah.
okay.